Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today we have an update with Kingfisher Metals. We have Dustin Perry, CEO, joining us. Last week, the company announced the expansion of the Highway 37 project in BC. And it's actually been a while since Kingfisher's had an update with us. I think it was in June, the last one, and there's been a couple of news items. The format will be an update from Dustin, followed by Q&A. You can put questions into the comments box on the right-hand side of your screen. And as always, today's presentation will contain forward-looking statements. You can learn more about those in the presentation on the company's website, which was recently updated. And welcome, Dustin.
Morning, Magda.
All right.
I'm gonna run through the company here for anybody new, pretty high level. Go through our drill targets, go through our recent consolidation, and then touch on the financing we're doing right now, why we're doing it, and how it's going to help the company with this acquisition. So, we moved into the Golden Triangle in 2023. So last year around the PDAC convention, we announced the 2 option agreements to consolidate the former Barrick project, Hank, and the eastern part of the original Ball Creek project from Origin Royalties. That took us to, I think, 362 square kilometers. A lot of really interesting targets on that ground. They still remain our top priority. But then earlier, I guess in the summer of this year, we picked up the LGM project that took us to 630 square kilometers. And then recently, we announced the definitive agreement to pick up the Ball Creek West BAM project, as P2 Gold was calling it. And that takes us to 819 square kilometers now. So now we've got the largest contiguous project in the Golden Triangle after Teck and Newmont's large projects. So Teck and Newmont have a 50-50 JV on Galore Creek. That's the biggest project contiguous in the Golden Triangle. Newmont's got the large Bruce Jack project, and they've also got the Red Chris project, which I believe touches the western side there, where they picked up Saddle and consolidated GJ off of Skeena. Skeena would be the largest non-major tenure holder, and we're pretty close behind them. And who knows, maybe we will beat them someday. With that in mind, though, this acquisition provides a lot of optionality to the company because the new claims have no holding cost. They're until 2032. So the claims are in good standing until 2032. And I think you can look at this from a couple angles. You can look at it like a real estate developer going and buying property in a distressed market and waiting for a real estate boom. That's one way to look at it. We can buy it now. We have shareholders who want to back this strategy, and we can sit on it. But also, there's 3 amazing targets on it that have the scale and the tenor of the anomalies really match with large porphyry systems, and really fit within our regional perspective and strategy, which is to screen a large area of ground and figure out, if there's multiple deposits in there. And that's really the way we believe in approaching exploration. And we're using AI to do this. It's similar to what Cobalt is doing, which is a big Silicon Valley-backed company using AI. They've been exploring large tracts of ground. Basically, if you have a small piece of ground, you're limited to what's in there. The bigger the area you have, the more likely, and if it's prospective, the more likelihood that you've got a deposit sitting in there, because it's not always where you first think it is. That being said, last summer we did some really good technical work, geophysics, geological mapping, and then a lot of historical data review and desktop studies. And that generated 6 new drill targets. The first one is going to be where we start drilling next summer, and that's going to be the Williams target. So with that in mind, just to touch on the team, we've got a highly specialized team, loads of experience in the Golden Triangle, highly motivated. We're desperate to make a discovery. A lot of institutions have backed us because they see this drive and they also know the technical knowledge we have and that we can bring to this large land position. We recently consolidated the company in April, so it's effectively a reboot of the company. It's an opportunity for people to get in at a low level right now. while the market is distressed and when other companies are struggling to raise capital. I put a slide here just showing where we would fit on the Lassonde curve. We are early stage, but we've got some very de-risked drill targets that we're going to be following up on this year. So just to touch on the share structure, currently at 43 million shares outstanding. That's going to go up with this transaction, partly because we're raising, out of the 1.25 million we announced, 1 million is going to P2 Gold to acquire this project, and another $250,000 worth of stock is going to P2 Gold. Currently, market cap's a little higher. We've traded up on this announcement of the financing. I haven't checked in the last few minutes where we're at, but I actually haven't seen, and I could be wrong, but I haven't seen another early stage explorer in BC go up on financing news this year. So that was a nice surprise yesterday. We have approximately 0.6 million in the bank. That we'd be down to 550K after paying 50,000 to P2 as the initial deposit. But we also have 150,000 coming in from the BC government. Just to touch on our shareholders, so we've got a very large shareholder that is going to go to 20% again here soon. Fourth largest mining family in Peru, very active investors, especially in the Yukon and the Golden Triangle these days. You can look into that on our SETI filings. We also have Crescat, Plethora. So Crescat's an American fund, Plethora it's a Dutch fund, and Wool Resources is a publicly traded Aussie fund, and then a couple smaller funds out of Munich, Germany. So I touched on the team earlier. We are a technically focused team. I guess the people to touch on here are myself. I've worked across BC on 50 copper gold porphyry projects. A lot of experience in the north. That's predominantly where I was. I had a consultancy before I started this company, and Gail worked alongside me for 3 years. Prior to that, she did her master's degree on the KSM project at the Mineral Deposit Research Unit at UBC. Seabridge Gold sponsored that. She also worked on the Bruce Jack discovery where she met Charlie Gregg. And she's also remapped Galore Creek for Teck, as well as working on a variety of other projects in the region. Charlie came off a big discovery at GT Gold, and he's been an advisor that's been highly wanted these days. He's joined the American Eagle team, and I think he's or really responsible for a lot of success there. And he's recently joined Hercules Silver. One other person I'll touch on our advisory board. Well, Francis and Zach are good friends of mine, and they're doing great things with their own companies, and they're large shareholders. But also Stephanie Sikora, we added her this summer after she spent a second summer on the project and got to see a lot more of it, and was very enthusiastic about joining the team. She did her PhD sponsored by Newcrest on the Lahire project at Codes in Tasmania, one of the top research schools in the world, and worked in the first quantum global porphyry exploration group. So we've got a really strong technical team. I think it stands out in the region, especially at our market cap. So this is our project portfolio. We've got our 100% owned Gold Range project, which is 511 square kilometers. It's in the Yalakum Gold Belt, which also includes the Brailoran project and Endurance Gold's Reliance project. We picked that up early on, drilled what I would call a high-grade gold discovery. We surpassed the 100 gram meter threshold, but we didn't get a lot of love for it, and the market was down. So we decided to pivot into the Golden Triangle because an opportunity existed to consolidate there, and it's really where our skill set lies. I'll note that Gold Range and Tibbert, they're 100% owned. Tibbert has a pretty low holding cost. Gold Range has no holding cost until 2033. At some point here in a better gold market, we will look at monetizing these, likely through a spin out, because we are focused in the Golden Triangle now. As you can see on the map, though, big piece of ground in the Golden Triangle. As you can see on this map, this is where we sit relative to the producers and developers in the region. So Newmont borders us to the north. Newmont Teck border us with the Galore Creek Road to the south. The Galore Creek Road actually comes onto the property at one point, and then to the west and north of us, Teck's Schaft Creek project, where they've got a not permitted or anything like that, but a proposed road that would cut right through our mess target and actually would run right through the guts of the anomaly there. So we're in a good location. We have a good relationship and an exploration agreement in place with the Tahltan First Nation. We do everything we can to hire as many locals as possible. This project sits in a favorable location within the Golden Triangle, paralleling Highway 37, which is why we put that name in play. The power line goes up to the Red Chris mine. So, this is helicopter access, but it's in a very good location within the Greater Golden Triangle. And as you can see, this quote here from last month, Newmont plans on being here for a long time. And I think that's a good sign. And I think it will indicate that other companies are likely going to want to come into this jurisdiction. There's a lot of resource nationalism going on in places like Africa right now. This is a great place for copper gold mineralization. You have clean hydroelectric energy here, so it reduces the carbon footprint for overall mining portfolios for these companies. And maybe at some point in the future, we'll go to a tiered metal pricing that will really have ESG factors weighing in on it, and this would come out on top. So we like where we're sitting. We know BC, and we've got a large land position now. But more than that, we didn't just pick up any ground. We wanted to focus on our model for the area and our prospectivity model. And this is a diagram here, or a map, just showing our VP Exploration, Gail Febo, her model for the region. She presented this at the premier kind of economic geology forum a few years ago, and we've talked about this with major mining companies, and they all agree with this model. And basically what it is you've got these structures that are crossing the volcanic arcs in the area, and they're really the focus points for mineralization in the area. If you look at a map of the deposits in the Vicuña district, and then so Lundin has a great presentation where they actually have some maps on this on their website, and it shows that across the Andes you get deposits localized on these cross arc structures. Same thing in Papua New Guinea. So they're great places to focus mineralization, and you see mineralized showings and projects kind of lining up on these overall like crustal scale structures. But further to that, what really got us interested in the area was the presence of Texas Creek intrusions on the project. So these intrusions host the majority of metal in the region because they're responsible for everything in the Sulphurets district, where I believe there's something in the order of 200 million ounces gold and a lot of copper in measured, indicated, and inferred. KSM is actually one of the largest undeveloped copper deposits on Earth. It's known as the largest undeveloped gold deposit, but it's also got a big copper contribution. It might be on the lower grade side, but if you took the cutoff grades down, there would actually be some pretty respectable grades there. Premier, and where Ascot and Brad and Scotty Resources are working in the Stewart district, is a little higher up in the system, and you get a lot of gold there. And then the Snip Iskut district is really emerging with Seabridge's recent work. So we think we've got a new district here, but we've added more favorable geology of different ages with our recent acquisitions over the past year. With all this in mind, it's worth looking at this graphic here. I put a lot of work into this. I digitized every single 43-101 resource outline in BC that I could find for a porphyry copper gold system. And what you can see here is just the scale of these systems and the scale of alteration for a few of them. Kamess down here, our project, and the Sulphurets district. We are pre-resource, but we've got large anomalies, and this is just part of our soil surveys here, but it really just serves to show that we're looking at big targets because we want to find something big. This is just a slide on what we're trying to do. We're trying to replicate what GT Gold did, and we're happy to have Charlie Gregg on board, who won the Prospector of the Year award for that large discovery. And you can really see just the value that can be created by a discovery, and this is a local one to us, very in close proximity. So here's just an overview of the project. You can see on the bottom left what it's looked like over time, how we've consolidated it, and then these are the different projects broken down over here. Hank and Ball Creek are under a 4-year option agreement that I don't think we're going to have any issue satisfying. Ball Creek West and LGM we own 100% of now. So getting into the details a little bit here, this is copper geochemistry on the project. You can see there's huge footprints on this project. Hank doesn't even have a footprint because it's got lithocap alteration that really leaches the copper out. But Williams did show up as an anomaly, and you can see the scale of Williams relative to these other systems on the project. So this is truly district scale. These are huge anomalies, and there's a lot of them. A lot of work cut out for us, but we're good at prioritizing work, and we're using artificial intelligence really to go through and systematically approach this. Here's gold for reference. So Hank really lights up as there's an epithermal system there. So last weekend I put together this geological map with Gail, really proud of this map because I think it really conveys the story here. It's quite technical, but what we've done is really simplify on the left what the geological model for the Golden Triangle looks like. And the key point here is that you've got these mineralized intrusions of different ages coming in at different times. And you see them based on, when they came in. And we have the different erosional levels on the project that would correlate with this. So the one really cool thing about this is that we've got potential for different ages of intrusions and mineralization across the project, right through from the older Schaft Creek age to Galore Creek age and to KSM Bruce Jack age. So I'm going to get into the targets we did last. We identified this past summer. So at Hank Williams, this large trend, you've got a big zone of lithocap alteration up here. You've got a historic epithermal gold system that lacked minerals, which became part of Barrick, outlined in the 1980s. 2017 to 19, Golden Ridge Resources came in here and drilled some really good holes, up to 20 meters of 12 grams in here. But they stepped across the valley and found a new porphyry. Soil sampling, ground magnetics, that's really what led to it. They were able to excavate by hand a little area at surface with bornite, chalcopyrite, digenite, covalite. So, some high-grade copper mineralization at surface. And their first hole into it was a success. One of the holes in that initial program drilled about 350 meters of 0.33 copper, 0.39 gold. This was announced around the same time as GT Gold, so it didn't get as much attention. But there's sub-intervals in there. That 190 meters of 0.49, 0.57 gold has an even smaller sub-interval of 127 meters of 0.56 copper and 0.69 gold. So when you look at that on a grade thickness and you compare it to Hercules headline intercept last year, it's 92% of that value. So there's a lot of potential here for grade. And one of the first things you want to look at as an explorationist is there grade? And then you try to build it out, and is there tonnage? And there is grade here, and it bodes really well for the entire district because we do have some historical age dates from the area that place Williams and Mary basically at the same age and within that KSM kind of spectrum of ages. So we think that at Mary, there's actually potential for Williams type mineralization. So what we did there this year is we did some new IP lines. We integrated that into historic IP surveys and had a new 3D inversion completed. The same guy doing our work is the same guy who did the work for Charlie at GT Gold, Alex Walcott. And what came out of that was some really impressive IP anomalies. There's a few reasons why we did this. Some of the IP surveys that were historically done weren't oriented in the right direction. We wanted to expand upon it. We went a full kilometer to the southwest, and we wanted to really extend into the next valley. And what came out of that was 3 large anomalies that are incredibly high tenor and very large, like over a kilometer scale, up to a kilometer wide, and up to 212 millivolt volts, which is a very high value. And they correlate with mineralization at Williams. And all 3 of these anomalies come in at a similar elevation, which is kind of what you would want to see in a porphyry camp or cluster. So this is a cross section through the Williams discovery. That's the historic drilling on there. A lot of it bottoms and mineralization. We've got some holes planned that wouldn't really show up on this section, that are going to go right through the guts because there's single holes hitting high grade that haven't been drilled beneath it. And the porphyry model, that is globally accepted, mineralization will switch from, pyrite and chalcopyrite to chalcopyrite and bornite, and then predominantly bornite at depth. And the model we're chasing is getting into a even higher grade, more bornite rich system as we get deeper. So the first hole is going to be pretty high degree of confidence. We don't have access to this drill core, so we really need to see the drill core firsthand. We've got good photographs of all the historic core since it was recent, but we really need to put our hands on it and get a first hole right into the guts of it. So I think people are going to be pretty pleased with the first hole we drill. No guarantees, but it's about as safe of a bet as we've had yet as a company. And then we're going to try to expand upon this and really test for extensions to the system and really try to grow it. So that's target 1 we're going to be focused on this year. These other targets, we haven't decided what target 2 is yet, but I really like the look of these ones. These sit directly underneath the epithermal gold system, a couple kilometers from Williams. similar intensity of IP, similar size. And the one key component here is that at Williams, when you're outside of the intrusions, you don't get amazing grade. It's all really in the intrusions. No intrusions have been intercepted in historic drilling here at Hank. All this is wall rock mineralization. So it's either structurally focused veins high up at surface, or then you get a little deeper and you get these broad gold intercepts of 342 meters of 0.44 gold. So that did not hit an intrusion. And the idea and our working concept is that as you get deeper, you're going to get one. So that would be a pretty nice hole, being able to drill through lower grade mineralization near surface and hopefully get into Williams type grades at depth. You know, if there are 3 systems here, this is very significant. And these types of more alkaline systems do often occur in clusters, and Cadia would be a good example. And I've got a slide coming up that shows just that. So this slide shows some regional examples just to put the scale and perspective of what we're looking at here at Williams. Here's Kerr, here's Saddle, and here's Red Chris. The top plan view maps are all at scale. You can see the resource outlines of the other projects that are either deposits or mines, and then you can see the outlines of our chargeability anomalies on the left. And then at the bottom, these are also scaled to each other. And you can see Red Chris on the right, Saddle in the middle, then Kerr, and then Williams. And the one key component here is you do get little bits of high grade at surface, but it's generally quite narrow, and it expands at depth, and the grades actually pick up. So that's the model we're using at Williams. The indications at surface and near surface already would correlate with this and look very promising. And then here's some rock photos of this. So you can see there really is an affinity like Cadia, North Parks, and Red Chris. And one thing to keep in mind is this suite of intrusions on our project is the same age as the Texas Creek intrusions, which would be KSM age, but it's a ways away. There can be variabilities. This formed in a setting where 70 kilometers away, I'm going to guess, where you can have different changes depending on the chemistry in the area. And we see actually more similarities with these more alkaline systems like Red Chris, North Parks, and Cadia. They're not true alkalic like silica undersaturated systems like Galore. They do have quartz veins in them, but there's potential for better grades because of this. That's our working concept. But given that it's these Texas Creek intrusions, we're hopeful that for tonnage as well, like you see at KSM. So maybe it's a bit of a hybrid. It's way too early to totally categorize this, but I've shown photos of Williams core, and we had a couple boxes or a couple holes available. And Stephanie Sikora, our advisor, who'd been to the Cadia district, North Parks and Cadia, took one look at it and ran for her computer, which had a presentation on the Cadia district, and showed it to us and was like, this is a dead ringer. Showed it to a few other people in the industry who've been there, like Craig Perry, and he thought the same thing. And one benefit of these is these systems often do cluster. So I've got a representation here of the scale of the Cadia belt, which is a huge belt similar to KSM, and then our targets up here. Keep in mind, these are targets; these are not resources. So that's some of our top targets. The Mary Trend is also very exciting. We think there's a lot of opportunity here just based on the scale of alteration and the fact that they haven't really got into the guts of it yet. And this would be a plan view map of the area. So there's been a fair bit of drilling in one focused area. We drilled it at Cliff last year. This area in the middle here, now we're interpreting it as a diatreme breccia, which would be a late event in the mineral system, which basically, there could be a little alteration in it, but it's going to be overprinting ore in the area. And the geophysics really does resolve this well. One thing to keep in mind is this is just a section. These two IP anomalies actually loop around like half of a donut and connect. And we drilled on the outskirts of it last year, about a kilometer away out in this direction, and hit pretty anomalous gold mineralization over pretty good widths with very intense alteration, indicating you're on the edge of a big system. So the target here is just getting deeper and testing these chargeability anomalies. It's going to take 500-600 meter holes, maybe deeper for these ones here, but the prize is very large and it shouldn't take that many holes to test this. So this is something a little bit further down our order of operations coming up here. But if and when we get the drill budget to really go after this project on a greater scale, this is something we're really looking forward to testing. Another target I'll just briefly touch on is ME. Big soil anomaly, very poorly understood, not a lot of work. There are a couple holes in the 80s that have incomplete assays that were drilled at the bottom of the slope. It's a steep slope, so they're quite a ways vertically and laterally below this. They have alteration you would expect in that geological position, and they do have anomalous metal in them. There's some spot assays in there up to 0.16 copper. But we did an IP line on the top of this ridge kind of, or little bench. And sure enough, chargeability, just like the other areas. Chargeability works really well here, given what you see at Williams. So this is a very good target, and this would be good enough target for a lot of companies just to be their only test of the year. But this really just shows the bench strength in this portfolio, how this would be, I would say, number 6 out of all 6 of these targets. So just to touch on the new targets we picked up. So, these aren't drill ready targets. Some of these have drilling, and some of them have variable amounts of geophysics on them. A lot of it is in paper format and hasn't been digitized or put into a 3D model yet. But we see huge footprints here. There's lots of good grade in grab sampling here, big geochemical anomaly. Much of this soil anomaly was taken in 2019 and has never been followed up on. You've also got some very young cover rocks out here to the west that could be masking a system at depth. We don't know how thin they are, but we don't think they're that thick. So this is another great opportunity to pick up, and we can slowly pick away at this and do low cost, grassroots exploration to work this up to a drill target in the future. But this has all the hallmarks of a big system. That's a big anomaly. It's about 8 or 7 kilometers long. Same thing at Mess Creek and Hickman. So what I just touched on was a similar age to the systems the more defined targets we have. But Schaft Creek, to the north of here, just off the map here, you've got a copper gold moly system. Hickman would be the same age. This area here was sampled in 2019, never been followed up on. Big anomaly. It's got potassic alteration at surface with good grades. And then at Mess Creek, there was a little more work, but it's all very shallow and done a long time ago, before the advent of 3D modeling, before 3D inversions on geophysics, when geophysics was quite shallow. And then sampling in 2019, extended the length of this area quite a bit. And there's quite a few gaps in it. So there's a lot of work to do on these, but a lot of it is low cost, like soil sampling and geological mapping and just digitizing historical data. So that's the kind of low cost work we're going to do. That will get us to drill targets at some point in the future, but there's no pressure to drill this right away because we've got great targets elsewhere on the project, and there's no work commitment needed on this area. Just going to touch on Grizzly briefly. Grizzly is an area that really interested us because there's a high-grade historical trench, 38 meters of 0.74% copper and a little over a gram gold. This area in here, Voigtberg, Galore Creek Mining Corp was working it this summer. This is one of 3 areas where you get what's called pseudo-lucite flows, which are basically the host rocks for Galore. And we haven't found the source intrusion, or we believe we haven't found the source intrusion here at Grizzly. A few historical holes that hit low-grade mineralization, but they did hit mineralization. We spent 1 day with Stephanie Sikora there this summer. And basically our interpretation from 1 day was this is very structurally complex and it needs a lot more mapping work to really sort out everything. And I don't think there was a real understanding here based on the historic work. So I would say there's a lot of potential on this target, but it needs more work and it's not drill ready yet from our standpoint. Finally, I'll just touch on the fact that we've got SK Creek potential on the project. I've had 3 days off since early October, and this is the one slide I haven't had time to get to. Our project is bigger than this now, as you've seen. And this little sliver down here would be SK Creek favorable stratigraphy. So, this piece of ground we have now is actually, getting to the scale of what probably similar to what SK Mining has. And it's got big, geochemical anomalies on it that are high strength. It's got rock samples on it that already show good grades. And the BC Geological Survey has done a fair bit of work there. We even had one BCGS geologist reach out once we acquired this project, saying he was very excited and offered to help out. So this is just another point of optionality for the company. It's not our focus. We're focused on copper gold systems, but maybe if the company grows large enough at some point in the future, we will be able to focus on that. I think that sums everything up, and we can go to questions, Magda.
All right, thank you, Dustin. So first off of the 2024 exploration season, I think you kind of covered your key takeaways from Grizzly this year, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then touching on Z-TEM, so you didn't do a Z-TEM survey this year. Would you do it before next year's drilling?
Well, I don't think we're going to do Z-TEM again. We had a very negative experience with the operator there. I'll just detail that. We paid a deposit in April, I think, that had a start date of late June, early July penciled in, and they had a lot of issues on their end due to equipment, but I think maybe there was some overbooking, and that kept on getting pushed to the point where it started in mid-September, which is, you would never normally start a survey at that point in the season in the Golden Triangle. You're getting into bad weather, and you need very good weather to fly these surveys. And we had, I think, 8 days of standby and just canceled it. So there's another operator that is equally good that we'll probably look at using in the future. We don't need this to resolve our drill targets. Like they're good to go. It was more of a regional screening tool. Now that we've, it's good we didn't do it because now that we've got more ground, and we would have paid the mob cost twice to get it all surveyed. So that's something we're looking at. At this time, though, I think everything we raise for drilling right now, unless there's some big changes, is going to go into drilling, and it's going to focus on Williams, where we've got the highest degree of hitting a home run here. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. And then, so I think you also answered. There's a question from the audience: does William resemble KSM or Red Chris more? And I think you.
Well, it sure looks like Red Chris.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of similarities. You've got hematite, specularite. You've got just the rocks, the color of them look. It's very intense potassic alteration. That's not to say you have potassic alteration at KSM, but it's actually gray. It's not pink. I would say it's hard to say, but I sure think it looks like Red Chris. And one thing of interest at Mary is one thing that came through our modeling and our putting our heads together and having more time with this project this year is that a lot of the mineralization at Mary, the lower grade mineralization, appears to be in an earlier intrusion that looks different from Williams. But if you go through drill core, which we spent quite a bit of time looking at the historic drill core this summer when we were on site, you see these very narrow little intrusions that look identical to Williams that are coming in, and they create great grade. You're getting 1% copper over narrow intervals where they come in, and a pretty broad halo. So I think that there's Williams type systems underneath there. You're just a little higher up, so they might be a little deeper down. But the fact that you've got such a broad area bodes very well for that. So yeah, same age as KSM, but it's a little different. No two deposits are going to be identical. That's just geology.
Okay, got it. And now that you've kind of built this out, so you added, you had Highway 37, then you added the LGM project, and now the BAM acquisition. How do all these targets compare to what was originally on Highway 37?
Yeah, so a lot of these are different teams could take different approaches, and some might rush to drill. We don't need to rush to drill anything because we've done the work this summer to really de-risk these targets at the original Highway 37 at Williams and Hank and Mary. So we're looking at these from acquiring more ground, but also from a standpoint of filling the pipeline. The other thing we're looking at from this consolidation perspective is that, majors want in on this area. We've had lots of talks with majors that aren't in this area, and they want in on this area. Newmont's going to be positioned here for a long time. It's a very attractive place to be, prolific mineral region in a safe jurisdiction. What we're trying to do is build out a project so that if a major wants to come in this area, there's one person they're going to deal with. They're not in the business of mopping up and consolidating belts. They'd rather deal with one operator. And if you can do that work, it can often pay off very well. But it's also helping us on the exploration front by giving us more opportunities to make a discovery and not adding to our commitments with this ground, because it is fully assessed till 2032.
And can you remind us of what the existing and planned infrastructure is like around, especially the newly added grounds?
So the newly added ground is more remote, but it does parallel the Galore Creek access road. And there's a proposed Schaft Creek Road in their PEA, I think it's a PEA or a feasibility study, that actually traces right through the Mess Creek area. I just see one question here that I do want to address, and it's about wouldn't it make more sense to drill and then do acquisitions and whatnot? And we don't see it that way. The reason being is the market can turn on a dime, and then all these projects are worth more. Also, if we go out and make a discovery, everybody's project in the area is worth way more. So I'd rather pick the ground up prior, and I am aware that it is dilutive, but it's also accretive. Now we've got the largest consolidated project in the Golden Triangle, and we've got some very good new shareholders coming in that I've just found out of this week, and a lot of demand for this financing. So I would say our largest shareholders are very keen on our strategy right now, and maybe it won't appeal to everybody, but this is what it is.
Got it. Thank you. And then do you have a sense of, in the press release, you mentioned doing machine learning and verify AI to analyze targets and refine targets. Can you elaborate on like how long this process takes and how adding new targets benefits also your existing data set?
Yeah, so the actual process working through verify, is pretty quick once you get the data into their system. The problem is we've got a ridiculous amount of data, and we keep on adding more. And it's not always in the best shape, the historical databases. So we've got somebody, one of our geologists, has been working nonstop, basically, with this data, cleaning it up, putting it into a format, doing QA/QC in it, trying to go find more data on these projects from reports that haven't been digitized. And really just getting this to them, and we keep on sending them data, so it's like the model keeps on changing, but the goal is for around the VRIC ABC roundup time, I guess the third week of January, hoping to put everything out at that point with what's really been resolved on the project. And I will say we had a preliminary model on an internal level that we did have. We had the data from the Northmore target, and that lit up like a Christmas tree. That showed up really well, and all our other drill targets do resolve well on it. But what's interesting is there's a few other areas that aren't really listed as priority targets that light up as well. So I'll be very excited to show that, and we're really trying to embrace AI here and looking at a lot of other things to do with it that I'm not going to disclose because it's proprietary. But I think it is going to be a huge positive to the exploration industry, and I think the people that adopted at the beginning are going to have a huge advantage. There's a lot of data in places like Canada where you have to file your work, and if you can get all that data into AI and come up with models, you could have a huge advantage. But it's really the first movers who are going to have that advantage. So that's what we're trying to do. And being a young team, I would say that's a good thing in that regard.
Okay. Thank you. And then do you have a sense of when we might have more information about next year's exploration program, or any color on what the priorities might be?
So we're working on a number of things in the background that I can't get into. And until we see some clarity on that, we won't have an outline of the exploration program. I think at minimum, though, we'll want to drill, at least 5-6 big holes at minimum. Funding that program, that has to do with what we're working on. So I'm not going to commit on that yet. What we're raising right now is not going to fund drilling. It's going to fund this acquisition and give us a bit more runway to get us through what I'm working on, which it may or may not include more acquisitions. There's a lot of things going on. And I also see when the placement will be closed. There's a few people I'm trying to get in right now to it. I can say right now that there's going to be no issue closing this based on the demand we've got so far, but there's a few people I really want to get in from a strategic standpoint. And we've got the holidays coming up here. So I'm hoping to close around the first, I guess the 10th of January or so.
Okay.
Sometime around then. We won't push it much longer past that because we'll have the money. So
got it. Thank you. And then funding and permitting and all that aside, can you just give us a rundown of which targets on the expanded ground were permitted for drilling and
yeah. So the new ground we just picked up is not permitted, but you can file a permit amendment to our existing. So the original Highway 37 permit was on the ground we picked up off Origin. They had applied for a permit prior to us acquiring it, and we had to make a few tweaks to it. And that permit is in place for 5 years, and then from last year, and you can always add a 2-year extension to a permit if you don't use all the drill holes within it. And I think there was something like over 100 drill pads in there, so it will likely be good for 7 years unless we really get going here. And then Hank, we permitted last year. That was a separate permit, similar thing, like around 100 or so drill pads with 5-year time frame, and IP and whatnot is included. LGM is permitted, so Grizzly is permitted, and then the new ground we just picked up is not permitted, but we'll probably look at putting it under amendment so we have the availability at least to do IP. IP requires a permit because of exposed electricity, and then drilling obviously requires a permit. All other work that we would be doing doesn't require a permit, but let's just say we're fully permitted for everything we want to do for the next few years.
Got it. Thank you. And I don't see any other questions. Is there anything else, Dustin, that you wanted to cover that we didn't get to today?
No, I think we covered everything. As usual, I'm very available, so reach out. I'm going away on vacation next week. Been at the point of burnout now, and I'm going away, which is partly why I'm going to keep the financing open, because I'm going to be hiking out of service on the North Shore of Kauai for a couple days, so I won't have any availability mid and end of next week. But otherwise, just reach out, and I'll always try to make time for people.
Awesome. Thank you. You've had a lot of releases over the past few months. So if anybody has any other questions, please reach out to myself or Dustin. And thank you for taking the time. Have a good day, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Magda.